So let me share my screen here. Can everyone see my slides? Yep. Okay. So by the way, I would love to make this fairly sort of conversational. I don't know how many folks we have sort of officially joined here, but even if it's okay with you, would love for people like chime in with questions either in the chat or like literally just interrupt me. I know we have an hour, and I always prefer when it's a little bit interactive and I can answer questions on the fly rather than just me talking for 30 minutes to an hour. So please jump in. Um, Here's my agenda for today. So again, it's all going to be sort of fairly casual, but would love to maybe just start by telling you a little bit about who we are here at Fabi and what we're up uh, to give you a sense of like where we're coming from in this conversation. Then the whole sort of crux of the conversation today is what is AI-powered data analysis? And I think there's kind of like a few different angles to that question. So, and also maybe verbally talk about like what it's not, in my opinion. We'll talk about like why you should care. So we work with tons of customers and users who are using AI for data analysis every single day. And so we get to hear amazing stories from them. And so I'll sort of like share that back with you all so you can think about how it might impact you. Then we'll do like a hands-on tutorial. So obviously we'll be in Fabi today, but if you also have like a local ID, presumably you can do some of what we're doing here today in that environment with some caveats. So we'll walk through that together. And then we'll end, before we get into Q&A, we'll also end with like tips and best practices. So again, we see literally hundreds of users every day coming in and using Fabi for data analysis. And there's good ways to use AI for data analysis. There's bad ways to use AI for data analysis. So I'll kind of like share some of my favorite tips and tricks to get started quickly. Um, I can't see everyone, but any questions or comments before we hop in here? Stephen, from you?
Nope, that all sounds good.
Okay. So real quick, just about Fabi, I won't bore you too much with this. We're an early stage sort of startup here working on solving the AI data analysis problem in the enterprise. My co-founder is Lei. He's been a data science leader his entire career, incredibly sharp guy. I've been sort of on the other side of the house where I'm actually not I was a data scientist for a hot minute, but that is actually not my core competency. I've actually been an analytics and AI product manager, product leader my entire career, working at companies like Clary and Assembled. And so Lei and I actually came together because we'd worked together at Clary, and we sort of had this realization that you have incredibly competent folks when it comes to data, like Lei and his team, who know how to query data and analyze data. And then you have folks who are a little bit less technically competent, like myself, but who know the data very well. And there was kind of like a broken collaboration between those two sort of groups of individuals. And we saw an opportunity to like completely rethink how BI is done in an AI native world. And we are building a platform that is both empowering and supercharging these like what I kind of like call like hardcore technical individuals like Lei, who know SQL and know Python incredibly well, while also empowering folks like myself who know SQL and Python a little bit less well, but know their data very well, and doing all this in a fully collaborative environment so that I can not just use AI for my help, but I can also engage my counterparts. And just a little bit more like why we built Fabi, we just see that like, you'll kind of see this throughout the workflow in my conversation today as well, is we're big believers that like legacy dashboards are provide just incredibly low ROI. It's what we hear from tons of like data leaders and data practitioners that we talk to, is kind of hear about like dashboard graveyards as we're creating a dashboard, and we sort of hope that someone goes and looks at it. And unfortunately, hope's not a strategy, and that's a very expensive strategy when you are spending tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars on your BI solution. So yeah, dashboards have a role to play, but we don't believe they're going to be as central in the future. Again, data teams are underwater, so we believe that AI can, and we'll talk about this today in AI-powered analysis, we believe that AI can really supercharge these teams. Huge amount of untapped potential semi-technical folks like myself and customer success managers who do know the data very well, but don't have the technical competency to answer their own questions. And then finally, what we're also really excited about is we just believe that there's entirely new ways of consuming data that are already being created or will be created in the future. So we talked about dashboards, but we think that a lot of folks want to consume data through, say, Slack or email or spreadsheets. Spreadsheets is a classic one. But if we kind of even think further in that, I don't know if anyone here has played with like Notebook LM or Gamma, but you could totally imagine a future in which you have like your own mini podcast that's kind of created for you by AI every morning or every week, giving you a recap of your data using Notebook LM, or perhaps you have like a mini slide that lands in your inbox using something like Gamma. So some really, really exciting opportunities here. And so what we're building here is really like the operating system at the heart of it all. So it's not just BI, it's really something that connects to all your systems. So we'll connect to all your sources. We'll talk about that today as well, because that's a core part of using AI for data analysis, being able to like really pull data from anywhere. And we are also connecting to all your documentation sources so that semantic information can come from anywhere, not just YAML files or JSON files. And again, we talked about data being consumed from everywhere. So really exciting future in our experience, in our opinion, for AI-powered data analysis. So before we like dive in here, and before I show you kind of like how we do AI-powered data analysis, I really think of AI-powered data analysis in actually two big, very different ways. And I just want to sort of pause here before we dive in. So the first is AI can be used to supercharge productivity, or AI can be used to unlock new workflows. And they are actually very different. So the first is when it comes to supercharging productivity, initially what you think of is like a cursor or a Replit or something like that. And that's where you have AI helping you with code gen. So I think someone mentioned here using AI for helping with dbt models or debugging SQL queries. Like that is a perfect example of using AI to supercharge productivity. And again, it's code gen, it's debugging, and also it's exploratory data analysis. So if you're starting with a fresh data set, or you have a stakeholder starting with a fresh data set or coming to you with some file or something you don't know, AI can be incredibly powerful when it comes to exploring your initial data set. The second angle is a very different angle. It has little to do with code gen. It has to do with enabling new workflows. So in the past, when you were doing sentiment analysis, you would probably use some Python package. And in my experience, some of those packages are good, but they're not great. And large language models are language models, and they're incredibly good at things like sentiment analysis. They're not as good about analyzing sort of structured data. That's where you have the code gen for that aspect, but they are really, really good for, again, text data in any language, or summarizing data, or doing any form of natural language processing. And we'll touch a little bit on the two of these today. I have sort of a tutorial here where I interweave the two, and you can follow along. So why should you care? The first is probably the most tangible aspect. So when it comes to supercharging productivity, these are numbers like we hear from our customers, where we hear that, for example, if you put AI with the right boundaries, which we'll talk about as well, if you put AI in the hands of your product managers who actually are probably competent enough to know if they're doing something wrong with the data, then you can really help reduce the ad hoc requests. Even if it's not perfect AI that can answer every question with every metric just perfectly, it can really reduce a lot of that heavy load on the team and free up the data team. It also really reduces the time to insights, especially for data professionals and folks who are data engineers, data scientists, data analysts who know what you're doing with the data. If it's just a question of generating the boilerplate code or debugging, it can get you to answer much, much faster. And again, free you up for arguably more interesting tasks and a little bit more strategic projects. And then finally, also with the right environment, you can build dashboards. I said dashboards here, but really workflows. You can build things much, much faster. So if anyone here has played around with Replit or Lovable or something like that, you've experienced it yourself, how you can just move much faster using AI to like vibe code. And so we at Fabi very much have this like idea of like vibe building or vibe analyzing, which allows you to build dashboards or data apps or workflows much, much faster than you could in the past. Now, on the other side, for unlocking new workflows, this is a little bit softer ROI. But if you are analyzing, again, sentiment data or review data or that kind of stuff, you'll find that you're able to just like do new workflows that you haven't been able to do in the past. So, for example, we have customers that send out weekly executive summaries that are AI generate to Slack. And that's a huge unlock because the team doesn't want to be going to a dashboard, and so just get their insight directly in Slack in plain English. And so again, ROI is a little bit hard to quantify there, but when you talk to these teams, they find this incredibly valuable and much more engaging than traditional dashboards. I want to pause here for just a second, see if there's any questions or comments so far.
I think the framing makes sense.
Okay. I'll give maybe folks like 10 more seconds to jump in here if you have any questions before I dive in. All right, and again, don't hesitate to interrupt me if you have any questions. So let's dive into a hands-on tutorial. Let me stop sharing my screen for a second here. Dive in. So if you feel like following along, you can actually do that. You can create a Fabi account if you want. Just go into our website, fabi.ai, and you say get started for free. We also have this template gallery, which I can always link afterwards as well, that can help kind of jumpstart you, and is actually some of the stuff that I'm using here for this demo. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be pulling a data set from Google Sheets, and I'll talk a little bit about how you can pull from different sources, and it's going to be some product review data. So here I just literally have, it's all dummy data, of course. It's a fairly simple data set, but it will illustrate the point. So here we just have some product review data for an e-commerce company. We sell hats and swimwear and shoes and so on and so forth. We have these reviews. We have how much the purchase was for, the discount, and the state that the purchase happened in, or delivery was done to. So the question here we're asking ourselves, like, are there certain products that have better reviews than others? Are there certain products that we're selling a lot of that have really negative reviews that we should be focusing on, and so on and so forth. So here you can see it's a mix of structured and semi-structured data, because we have this effectively a CSV or file or spreadsheet with this free-form text. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Fabi. So that's what I have here. And this is what we call a smart book. So effectively think of it as like the next gen Jupyter notebook. It's all cloud-based, and it's really cool and powerful for a number of reasons, which I won't necessarily get into right now. But to get started, what we need to do is pull the data in. So we could pull the data. I'll talk about this a little bit more kind of along the way as well, from various sources, from like directly a database as well if you want. I just like using this file because I can share it with you all, and you can follow along if you want. As a matter of fact, let me just do that real quick here. If you want to follow along, here is the file. It's publicly available. There we go. And you'll be able to do my exact workflow here as I go. So the first thing I'm going to do is pull the data in. And since it's a public URL, I'm going to use our public URL G Sheet cell. If it's a private spreadsheet you're using, just click Google Sheet pull and then authenticate your Google Drive account or Workspace account, and then you can search for your file. Result will be the same. So here I'm pasting the URL. And then I'm going to give the output data frame. So we're going to be using Python data frames here for our analysis. And I'm going to be calling this product reviews. So that's going to be the name of our data frame. I'm going to go ahead and run this. Okay. So now we have our exact same data here. As you can see, it's pulled in as a Python data frame called product reviews, and it's all the same data. So one of the very first things that I like to do when I'm working with a new data set is actually ask the AI to describe the data set. So this is where we're going to go over to our the AI agent here. I'm going to say, describe this data set for me. So I'll take an opportunity here just in this kind of like first question here to describe a little bit what's happening on the right. This is an AI agent that will perform a number of tasks and call a number of tools to accomplish or to respond to my prompt. So it can search your database schema, it can search your files, it can search your smart book here on the left, and all that kind of good stuff to answer your question. And it will also automatically run code for you without you having to like add that code to your notebook on the left. So here you can see it did a bunch of analysis. It wrote the code for me. I can look at the code if I want. I'm actually going to ignore that just for a second. I'm going to go right to the output here. So I'm not going to read everything, but you can see here, okay, data quality generally clean with only 3 missing values. In the review text column, fantastic. It's giving me some information about each individual field as well, which is pretty cool. Okay, purchase amount here, I can notice very quickly that there's some negative values, so I plan to take care of that. And also some key insights here. So this is pretty cool. Mid-range products averaging $58, product mix fairly balanced, and data set covers New York and California. So really, first of all, AI is incredibly helpful just for this if you're dealing with some data that you are not familiar with. So we see tons and tons of usage for use cases around this. Now, I'm actually going to reject this change. I don't necessarily want to go and pin this code. What I do want to ask the AI is to help me clean up the data. And this gets into the tips as well for AI-powered data analysis. I always recommend spending most of your time on the data cleaning step. So we've all heard the garbage in, garbage out. I actually think that like that sort of saying is unfortunately a little bit overly simplistic, because I do think that you can do really great things with some quote unquote garbage data, but you just have to spend the time to clean it up front, which I'll show you. Yes, Stephen.
Yeah, just a quick question. I know you rejected the suggestion from that post, but could you describe like broadly what it would have done if you had accepted it? Like, was it going to create a new data frame or change the existing data frame?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, I will. So you actually didn't have to theoretically reject that. If I had asked a follow-up question, I would have rejected it automatically, but accepting it would effectively add that code and save that code for me with the proper dependency tracking and reactivity in my notebook on the left. So as a matter of fact, I can show you that right now. So well, yeah, let me show you. So what are some of the issues with this data? So Stephen, I'll answer your question a little bit indirectly by just continuing here with the flow, and then I'll pin this and you'll see how it kind of creates your data frames for you.
Sure. Just want to pull out, there was another question in the chat. Somebody was asking about like comparable features in Google Worksheets. And I don't know if you had any experience with that, Mark.
A great question. Actually, I love Google Sheets. Lucas, I have not tried their AI agent. I forget, did they make it free now, or you still have to pay for it? I don't think I ever made the leap to go and pay for the AI agent, but maybe might be free now. Lucas, do you know? You can answer. Take your time to answer here.
Yes, I have tried. I think it's free to try it out.
Okay. Yeah, so believe it or not, I haven't tried it. But I can't. I don't think their agent does anything around Python or like data visualization, and like you certainly can't write like queries and that kind of stuff. So I'd imagine that like it can help you like write formulas and like do some analysis on like a spreadsheet. But I would guess like that's pretty much the extent of it. Does that resonate, or is there something else that they can do?
I also haven't explored it much. I
Okay.
just did a small query, so I cannot.
Yeah. I'll go try it out afterwards. I'm actually very curious. I've been meaning to get around to it. So, okay. So back to this here. I asked the AI. This is again. I'll reemphasize. If you're using AI for data analysis, like I always love to say, take the time to clean the data and like get a data frame or file or whatever you're using that is clean. The more time you spend on that, the less time you're going to spend with like headaches down the road with like the AI not understanding your data. I can show you how we can write a query too here, and not just pull from Google Sheet. But if you're writing a query, I also think it's fantastic to like use aliases to rename fields, like and be more explicit, because the AI is like to me like interprets data like a human does, and so you know, purchase amount, maybe it's even better to rename that purchase amount underscore USD to be very clear that it's in USD. So I always like to take a lot of time to do that. So here I asked the AI for issues with the data. okay, I have some mislabeled categories. Sometimes hat is plural, sometimes it's singular. The states are inconsistent. Sometimes it's New York, sometimes it's NY. There's missing data, negative purchase amounts, and potential data entry issues with duplicate records. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to say, okay, please fix these issues for any missing fields, any missing reviews. Just filter out the data, and for negative values, filter those out since they're returns. Now, if the AI does what I want to do in this case, this is where, Stephen, I'm going to go ahead and accept the change, and it will then add it and create a new data frame for me. A second here. By the way, one of the things that we're really proud of at Fabi is that we're the only analyst agent that will actually dry run the code for you before you have to go and pin it. So you can actually iterate and spend much more time just in the chat rather than asking the question, pinning the code, asking the question, pinning the code. So let me just make sure it's doing what I want to do here. So I'm just going to do a quick review. Original data set 200 records, final clean data set 194. So it filtered some out. Missing reviews filtered out, great. Negative purchase amount filtered out, great. Category name standardized, great. States name standardized, great. Data quality verified, 0 missing values. Okay, fantastic. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say pin to SmartBook. And this is where it's going to, the AI is going to know, it's going to figure out where to properly pin the code in your notebook on the left-hand side to run. And so I'll just flash this up real quick too, because I actually really like this view. This workflow view, you can edit your code directly here as well, just work out this, but this workflow view is really cool because it shows you how the AI is connecting all your different pieces of code. So you can see here that we're pulling data from Google Sheet, we're storing it as product reviews, and then the AI is leveraging that product reviews Python data frame to analyze your data, and then it's creating new variables. So we can always toggle back and forth between these two views to see how things are being built out. So with that, and Stephen, just to answer your question very explicitly, the AI, let me just look at the code here. At the very, I'm going to go to the bottom, and the product reviews cleaned. Okay, so ultimately what happened here is the AI creates a new data frame for me called product reviews clean, which I can now use. And again, going back to my tip is if I'm going to spend most time cleaning my data, I'm going to want to do it here like cleaning. I can rename this like cleaning step. I want to spend most of my time in this cleaning step so that anything sort of downstream is using that clean data frame. So far, so good.
Yeah, and just one quick follow-up question to that. You may be getting to this next, but if you want to change something in that specific data frame using AI, is there a way to prompt that data frame specifically, or do you have to go back to the chat on the left, and can you identify it in the chat that way?
Yeah, so you can tag data frames, you can tag artifacts, you can tag any data frame or any code block that you want. So here, for example, the AI will actually auto tag code blocks that you're focused on. So here I clicked on this cell, so it's understanding that I want to clean up this code. And so if I said, for example, let's say I don't want all this output text. I don't want the printed output summary. I just want the final data frame. So you can tag artifacts here. You can, or even say at and then tag the artifact, and the AI will understand what you're saying and use that in the context for your question.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. And here, for example, we'll let it finish generating. Since I asked it to just clean up this code, you can see it removed all the printed statements. So I can say pin to SmartBook, and what's going to do is just going to replace this data frame. It's not going to create a new data frame for me. It's just going to literally replace it. So I just have my clean data frame now.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
Cool. So now I'm going to move away from the AI as an assistant and go towards AI for helping me do new things that I couldn't that were very hard to do in the past. So I want to go and categorize the sentiment of each of these reviews, so I can then look at which products have the most proportionally the most positive or negative reviews. So I'm going to insert a new cell here, and I'm going to look for our AI enrichment cell. And this is a cell that's going to accept a data frame, a Python data frame, and a certain field as input, and it will create a new data frame with a new field based on a prompt. So what that looks like in practice is I can say product reviews cleaned. That's the name of the data frame here. And the field is called review. And we're going to output product reviews categorized. Categorized. Okay, got that. And then sentiment. We'll just call it sentiment. So this is where I give the prompt. I can say categorize each review by sentiment using positive, negative, and neutral. Okay. I'm gonna run this real quick as a preview so we can see what we have, and we can always rerun it on all records. So let's take a quick look here. So you can see here we have a new, in this data frame, we have a new column called sentiment, and this says poor fit and uncomfortable to wear. That's negative. Okay, very disappointed with this purchase. Negative. Yep, absolutely love this product. Positive. Fantastic. So looks like it's doing what we want to do. In this case, I will say, like, another quick tip is if you do use this, you'll want to like be as specific as possible. Here, I'm actually being kind of vague, and it's working fairly well. But it's helpful sometimes to say, hey, we are a e-commerce company that sells ... and I want you to do X, Y, and Z. So you can be as verbose as you want in this prompt. So now let's run it on all reviews. Take just a minute. There we go. So now we have our sentiment categorized for each of our reviews. Another quick tip that I have here is always supervise what the AI does. I kind of actually didn't follow that principle when I just accepted the AI's changes in the Python code without like really kind of combing through it. But at the very least, like, you should inspect the output and make sure that like it's doing what you generally want to do. So like here, what I like to do is like I like to just spot check things and make sure there's nothing that's like way off. Not bad, but could use some improvements. That's neutral. Okay, I agree with that. I'm just going to go down here. It's okay, nothing special. Neutral does the job, but I was expecting more. Neutral. Let's see, a positive, great quality, and feel how I recommend positive. Okay, so it generally seems like it's good. So always recommend doing that. Another quick tip is, here we're spot checking specific records, but if you're having the AI like clean your data like this step is doing, just ask the AI to like visualize it, like plot the data for you, or create charts. Like that's a very, very good way and quick way to make sure it's doing what you expect it to do.
Is it possible to view the code behind that cell, or is that hidden behind the UI?
Behind this AI cell?
Yeah, like if I wanted to determine how you're figuring out the sentiment, like the function running to do that, is that provided, or is that just built into this window?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's actually built in the LLM effectively. So the LLM is determining how it decides like what's positive or negative. And LLMs, like that's kind of a black box, which is why we actually offer to sell, because like it retains the structure of your data frame while sort of using that probabilistic approach on just that specific field on that specific row. But unfortunately, again, LLMs are LLMs, and so it's a bit of a black box. It's sentiment is determined however 4.1 nano decides it wants to categorize a sentiment.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, now that we have the sentiment, we can actually start analyzing this data even further with Python or SQL. So I can now ask the AI to create a 100% bar chart by sentiment category, grouped by product category. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out which product categories have proportionally the highest number of positive or negative reviews. So let's go ahead and ask the AI to do that for us. And another quick tip here that we'll talk about at the end is I always recommend being as explicit as possible. Where we see challenges is when folks ask questions like, explore this data, or if you ask something like, which products have the most, highest number of or highest percent of negative reviews, it will answer the question, but it will answer it in the way it chooses to. And if you have an specific idea of like how you want that question to be answered, it's better to be more explicit. So like here, I'm thinking like, well, I'd love to just see like each product category and then see it as a 100% bar chart, so I can at a glance understand which ones perform the best or the worst. And so that's what I did here. This actually just nailed it on the first try. So I'm going to go ahead and accept that and add it to my smart book. And there we go. So now I have my 100% bar chart, and I can see that what are these? These are shoes. Shoes seem to be absolutely crushing it, whereas has the highest percent? So here, jeans, for example, have the highest percent of negative reviews and so on and so forth. So now that I have this data that's AI generated, or it's the categories that are AI generated, I can analyze my data further downstream using, again, going back to Python and SQL, which now, Stephen, to your question, I can go back and inspect and make sure it's doing what I want it to do. Okay, I'm actually keeping an eye on time here. It's actually taking a little longer for me to get to this than I thought. So I want to show just a few more things here. So if you're, once you're done with your analysis here, you could do a few things. So one is you could obviously just go and publish this as an interactive data app. So you can just go to publish. This is where you can, in Fabi, create like a data app or dashboard or whatever you want. One thing that I won't spend too much time on here is you can actually configure the AI directly in the data app as well if you want to have it help you answer follow-up questions. So we will show you all the data frames that you've created or the AI has created in your notebook here on the right. You can relabel these, you can remove certain ones. So let's say I just want to provide the product review cleaned as a data source. I can just say that. I'll say finish and view report, and this will publish a data app that now has the AI that will just look at this one data frame and can answer follow-up questions on just that data frame. So that's really helpful to have the AI sort of answer follow-up questions for you if you're sharing this with your stakeholder. Now, the other thing I want to finish on is if you want, I'm going to go back to my smart book here, is if you want to share this as an executive summary. So we talked about not just creating dashboards, really creating like new workflows. You can also create an AI summary here and send this as a Slack message. So let's say AI summarization, and I'm going to take my cleaned product reviews. Okay, just copy that data frame name. There we go. And I'm going to say generate a brief executive summary of the sentiment of the reviews sentiment. So I'm just going to run the preview here. Now this cell is actually going to go and maybe it's a little bit too brief. So this cell is going to create a summary here. And I can then pass that to, for example, a Slack cell. So I can now send this to Slack on a weekly basis. I can simply say, use curly brackets here and call it, this is past the Fabi summary 1. And that will then send it to Slack. So my executives can get a weekly report of our sentiment reviews. So I want to pause here for a second. Any questions or comments on this?
It's not really directly about this, Mark, but before the end of the demo, can you give a preview of all the other options of the cells you can choose in that dropdown?
Yeah, so you can, let's go ahead, let's look here. So you can create a SQL cell. So a SQL cell will, is just literally a SQL cell, and you can pick the data source you want. AI can generate SQL as well. So I can pull a list of top repos based on Stargazer accounts. So the AI can generate these cells for us. Then you have filters and inputs. So you can actually when you create a data app, like I just showed you, you can add drop downs if you want to effectively create a dashboard or create an interactive data app. You can create text cells, you can drop notes in there. You can also push and pull to Google Sheets. So we have a lot of customers who will do their analysis in Fabi and then say, okay, I just want to push this back to Google Sheets. You can push that back to Google Sheet, and it will actually also create a column that will link back to your Fabi Smartbook. So you always have like lineage. You can trace back the data from the spreadsheet back to the original analysis. Airtable, so you can pull data from Airtable, and then Slack's in. And we're constantly adding new cells as well. So if there's a request for a new source or a new type of cell, then folks can reach out to us. We can add these pretty easily.
Nice. And I don't think you explicitly mentioned it, but in addition to Google Sheets, you can connect to any database. There's like plenty of other sources to pull from.
Yeah, that's right. So here, for example, I had the AI write a query for me. Let me just go and pin this. The AI is querying, it's going to query ClickHouse, I think. Yeah, so it's querying ClickHouse here. And it's all SQL based. And of course, if you want to connect to any data source, just come in here, drop in your data source. We're adding new data sources all the time as well. So if there's always requests, just let us know. And the cool thing too is like the AI actually like knows which data source has like which schema and which data warehouse or database has certain data. So here like understood that ClickHouse has our GitHub data, so it actually queried ClickHouse. So you can also like merge different data sources here via our data frame. So if you have a spreadsheet and something in Postgres and something in ClickHouse, you can like literally run queries on all of those and then merge the data and analyze data together. Lucas, no, unfortunately, we are not open source. So we are a proprietary system.
Could you talk a bit about what it would take to get started if somebody wanted to use Fabi? Like, do you have a free tier, or do you have to chat with your team, or what's the plan?
Yep, literally just go to fabi.ai and there's a get started for free. You can start for free. The free plan, candidly, is more of a trial for you to kind of kick tires. You can upload files, you can make a data source, all that kind of stuff. And then we start for builders at $39 a month. And of course, we love talking to folks directly as well. So if you do have questions or need help setting up, just reach out to me directly or support at fabi.ai or whatever, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. We also have documentation. We have these templates up on our website. So if you go under resources, we do have, where is it here, templates. And you can just click on each one of these and say, try this template, and we'll create the template for you as well. So we make it really, really easy. Like typically, initial setup takes anywhere between like 5 to 10 minutes.
Nice. I do have one more question, but I want to give everybody else a chance to jump in too, if anyone has any comments or questions. If not, then
while folks are thinking, I can give everyone a few more minutes here by talking about my very sort of generic tips and best practices for AI powered data analysis, if that's interesting to folks.
Sure, I'd be interested in that.
Okay, so these are fairly high level, but these are some of our learnings. So you saw me do this today. Like I always recommend using AI for data prep. Again, garbage in, garbage out, I think is a little bit oversimplistic. Actually, we see our users every single day wrangle incredibly messy data on incredibly large data sets. It really depends on your own understanding of your data and your level of expertise. But the AI can do a great job helping you explore that data and write the boilerplate code or some basic scripts to clean up your data. So that's always my like number one tip, is like spend most of your time getting your baseline data set that you want to analyze right. And then you can get into using the AI to quickly analyze it downstream. We also recommend configuring context. So in Fabi, we've already taken care of configuring the context for you. We've already stored all your schema information in our vector database. And we've already sort of like prepped the AI and stuff, so you don't have to do that. But if you're working out of like a more generic AI assistant like Cursor or something like that, like take the time to configure your markdown files or your agent files to provide the correct context for the task that you're trying to do. My other probably big tip is work incrementally. So like, unfortunately, what we see a lot of also is like folks coming into Fabi and like asking the AI, here's my data, create a dashboard or give me insights. And unfortunately, like the AI will come up with an answer, but in my experience, like it's not usually that interesting of an answer. You still very much have to approach the AI as like a junior sort of data analyst or data scientist who can actually perform tasks very well with the right guidance, but isn't necessarily going to like understand the full context of your business every single time and like come up with the right insight. So work incrementally and use the AI as that assistant. And then also know your limits. So like this is really, really important. Unfortunately, something we also see is like folks coming into to Fabi and they're not data scientists and they ask the AI to do some sort of regression analysis, but like they don't even know really what regression analysis is. That can very quickly get you into trouble because the AI can perform the task, but you may not be able to supervise it. And so, for example, I know my limits. I am good enough to do data analysis and slice and dice data, but my machine learning days are sort of long behind me. And it's like I'm not doing like crazy ML models. In Fabi, we have customers that are, but that is not me because I can't necessarily determine if the AI is doing exactly what I want it to be doing. So knowing your limits is really, really important in my experience when dealing with AI. Do I find it helpful to write a full project context at the beginning? So I never have to do that because I do our data analysis in Fabi where we've taken care of like pretty much tuning everything to the point that you don't need to do that. But if you are doing that, I don't know, Steve, are you working out of like a Windsurf or Cursor or Cloud Code or something ever?
Yeah, this came up when you were talking about the working incrementally bullet about, instead of just going in and saying,
Ah,
give me a dashboard, it's like, do you tell them about your project? Do you have a opening paragraph that you like to start with?
I don't. It's an interesting question, actually. I should probably experiment more with like a big sort of blurb at the front about the context of the data and all that kind of stuff. Like I haven't found the need to do that as long as you work incrementally. Now, if you want to kind of like try to one shot it, then yeah, you'd probably have to do that. But I always sort of recommend against sort of trying to one shot things. So I don't do that, but. Um, Actually, we see a lot of users who do. I probably should like talk to them and see if they find that helpful because we could like sort of bake that in. But generally speaking, I don't do that.
Okay, just curious. Yeah.
It's a good question. Any other questions?
Well, let me just say that was a really excellent demo. Thanks for showing us that walkthrough of Fabi, and just more broadly helping us all here kind of think through AI workflows because this is a moment I think for all of us. We're all trying to figure this out, and it's really interesting to see how tools like yours have approached the problem and tried to really like bake it into the data workflows. One last maybe high level question I have for you is I want to call back to one of your slides where you showed the two different sort of styles of investigating data. And I'm curious how you feel about Fabi, or maybe with clients you've worked with, how it has worked into their workflows with existing tools. Because there are some things that you showed in the demo where, I'm thinking like, I'll use Fabi to explore data for days. There's so much that you can do with that tool. But at some point, I'm going to want to take some of those transformations and maybe add it to a DBT project or like add it to some existing workflow. I'm just curious, like, how are you seeing teams work with Fabi in their data pipelines?
Yeah, so I think to your point, there's kind of like two broad categories. There's just staying in Fabi and like doing all your work in Fabi. Automating your workflows there. So, the vast majority of our customers are automating their spreadsheet pushes, their AI executive summaries, their data apps, all that kind of stuff, like directly in Fabi, just because like it's literally a press a button away from like just publishing and we handle scheduling all that stuff for you. But we certainly see a lot of cases where folks do come into Fabi and use, the AI analyst agent with like the context of your data, all that kind of stuff to like write queries and like sort of extract it. Um, to be perfectly honest, like today we don't have there's a lot of copy and pasting that happens there in that situation. We are working on a GitHub integration that will also store some of that data as a config file, so you'll be able to like tie that back into your workflows. But there's something that we're thinking about, which is like an API or some other ways to like extract the data and like turn that into, if you're doing like more data, like so let's say data engineering work, leverage Fabi while being able to like extract it and like feed it into the rest of your system. Now that said, too, I also think that if if quote unquote all you're doing is like writing queries, and like my honest answer might be like you might be just as well off doing that like in a local IDE, if you have your setup with like Claude Code or something like that. Really for us today, our bread and butter is like data analysis and like exploratory data analysis, building data apps, building workflows. I'm never a big fan of like copy and pasting, and so if you end up doing that, then like there might be ways to configure your AI agent locally so that you don't have to be doing that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me. I know I think we're wrapping up here, so unless there's anything else, Steve, I'm happy to stick around and answer questions. But thanks for having me. This is a pleasure. And if anyone has any questions afterwards, just feel free to shoot me an email or reach out to me directly.
Thank you, Mark. Exactly. If anyone has any other questions, please feel free to follow up. Yeah, I mentioned this at the top, but this will be the last week of the Database Tycoon summer camp. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you for closing the series out here, Mark, with us.
Yep.
And this video will be posted on our YouTube channel at Database Tycoon for anybody else who wants to come back to it or share it around if you'd like. Yeah, quick plug, I suppose, for Database Tycoon. We are a full stack data consultancy. So we're using tools like Fabi, we're using tools like the other tools you've seen listed in this summer camp series, and trying to build really robust and dynamic data pipelines for all different kinds of teams out there. So please feel free to reach out if you have any data challenges or data needs you want to work with, or if you want to implement Fabi, or if you want to implement any of the other tools that have come up in this series. So I'll leave it at that. And
Amazing.
yeah,
Thank you.
care. Thanks, everyone.